Welcome. I'm Marta Tellado. I'm the president and CEO of Consumer Reports. We're a nonprofit organization. We have a 6 million member strong membership group, and we've spent the last 85 years fighting for a fair, a safe, and a just marketplace. And today we are very much aware of the evolving digital frontier and all it presents to consumers, both the opportunities as well as the risks in the marketplace. And that's why the issue of data rights is truly central to our work and why we're doubling down to empower consumers with far more control over who has their data and for what purpose. We can't do this alone. And so I am in the company of some wonderful co-hosts. And we know that meaningful progress on data rights is going to involve academicians, researchers, regulators, industry leaders, and other fellow nonprofit organizations. We have to work together, and we have to bring our best creativity and innovation on behalf of consumers. So I am really thrilled that this group is around the virtual table for a cross-sector, multidisciplinary exploration today. I want to thank all of you for being here and joining us, and a special thank you to Sandy Pentland. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise and your insights. I know Consumer Reports has benefited greatly from it. So I'm going to hand it over to Ben and Ginny to explain our vision for consumer data rights and where data rights protocols fits in. Thanks.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ben Moskowitz. I'm the head of the Consumer Reports Digital Lab. We've got three things we want to cover with you in the next hour. The first is the concept of the data rights protocol. And what's the basic idea of what we're trying to achieve? The second is the path to implementation. And the third is perspectives from the implementing organizations about the problems that the data rights protocol might be able to solve. So let me just start with the basic idea. The basic idea is let's make it easy for people to exercise their data rights. As you all know, we have laws like GDPR and CCPA that have established a new class of consumer data rights, like rights like the opt-out right, the right to delete data, the right to access data. But our research has shown and our experience has shown that it's quite hard for consumers to exercise these rights. Many of you who've made the time to come today are in the business of helping businesses more easily honor consumer data rights. And so what we're trying to do with all of you is to really work out some of the missing pieces of what it's going to take, not just for companies, but for consumers to be able to exercise those rights. We think that the data rights established by CCPA, GDPR, and laws like that are building blocks for a fairer economy. Because as Marta said, today consumers have very little control over who can use their data and for what purpose and under what conditions. And we think that in the future, consumers should have some agency and some say in that. And that's not just a question for lawmakers and for policy, it's also a question for all of us as technologists. So we think that data rights are building blocks for a fairer and more efficient market. What we're going to be talking about today and in the months and years ahead is a long journey. It's like a 10-year journey in some ways. We like to analogize it a bit to the history of auto emissions standards. So if you go back to the 1970s, California had this crazy idea that we should mandate stronger fuel efficiency and emissions standards for automobiles. And that was kind of radical. And as a result, manufacturers had to tool up, they had to innovate. They actually experienced a great deal of pain in this transition to stronger fuel economy and cleaner cars. But as went California, so went the nation. And we think that a similar thing is going to happen with data rights and CCPA. So in some ways, if you'll indulge me in a very corny analogy, you are all leaders in helping with this transition, this 10-year transition. You get what it takes for all sides of the marketplace to get from where we are today, where we need to be. And so you guys are basically building cleaner carburetors for the data economy. You guys are really coming here and engaging in this process because you know this isn't something that an individual vendor can solve or any one law can solve. This is about moving an ecosystem forward. So we're here today to talk about a very specific piece of what it's going to take to move this ecosystem forward. It's a very tiny and narrow piece, but it's really important and it will unlock a lot of value if we can do it right. It's the idea that we need to standardize how we generate and exchange data rights requests. How do we generate and exchange data rights requests in a standard way? Really simple idea. It's almost like an HTTP for the data economy, for expressing a data rights request. But if we can build that together, we think we can unlock a lot of value. And so I just want to say again that we're really grateful to all of the implementers for engaging in this process of drafting and envisioning the protocol. We're really grateful to all of you who've made time to come here today to hear about this effort. And we can't wait to see what comes next. So I'm going to hand it off to Ginny, who's going to get into a little bit more detail about what the data rights protocol is. And then we're going to hear from Ryan Ricks about the engineering dimensions and what's really inside this protocol as we've articulated. So Ginny, over to you.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. My name is Ginny Foz, and I lead product and R&D at the Digital Lab at Consumer Reports. And Consumer Reports has been thinking about data rights for a long time. On the next slide, you'll see that we have been a very vocal advocate of laws like the CCPA that extend data rights to consumers. But we're also a publisher. So we're also an organization that needs to process a lot of data rights requests. And so we understand just how hard it is to implement this on the company side too. We've generated a body of research over past months where we've been working with consumers and asking them what it's like when they try to exercise their data rights under CCPA. And we've also done research where we've helped them exercise their data rights as an authorized agent. So we've seen this issue from a lot of sides. On the next slide, you'll see just a general flow of what it looks like to when there's a data rights request, right? So there's a consumer who submits the request. There is often a privacy compliance tech company that helps facilitate the request. And then there are covered businesses who are responsible for processing these requests when they receive them from consumers. And sometimes on the next slide, there's even an agent, an intermediary who's kind of facilitating the request between the consumer and the corporate side, whether it's the privacy compliance tech or the covered businesses. And there are these four sides of the marketplace, but we still don't have a standard agreement or a definition or a specification for what are the necessary components of every single data rights request. Might they be able to be generated in a standard way? Could they be exchanged in a standard way? And that's the question that we're excited to try to work our way towards answering with this data rights protocol project. So we've been working on the data rights protocol for a few months now. Today, we're going to be showing you V0.4. So this is still very early work. We don't yet have this in production. This is progress towards a data rights protocol, but it's a starting point, and we're excited to show you what we've done and start to ask for your feedback in continuing to develop this. Right now, I'll hand off to my colleague, Ryan Ricks, who's the engineering lead on our team, and he'll walk through what the protocol looks like today.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thanks, Jenny, for the introduction. So the data rights protocol, if you could step to the next slide, is a communication workflow to receive, process, and complete data rights requests. It's implemented as a simple workflow that encapsulates all of the communication between the initial user making a data rights request all the way through to a user downloading their data or verifying that their user data was deleted at the end of the request. And to implement that, we've provided a set of simple HTTP and JSON endpoints, which implement basically the core verbs of the data rights protocol. So there's a simple metadata resource under this sort of well-known prefix to discover the API location. There's an endpoint to submit a data rights request to get the status of a data rights request that's already been submitted, as well as an affirmative, sort of user revocation cancellation endpoint. And lastly, there's also an endpoint which can be implemented by these sort of user agent side, whether it's an authorized agent or whether it's a simple web service, so that the covered business or the infrastructure providers can basically push new statuses of the request to the user. And so the data rights request format is fairly simple. we encapsulate kind of the the sort of legal bases for the request. We capture the explicit rights themselves, whether it's a do not sell request, whether it's an access request, whether it's a deletion request. And we also specify and submit a number of user identity claims encapsulated in a JSON web token. Can you step to the next slide? Yep, sorry. And so the data rights protocol is an agreement to support JWT identity tokens. And these JWT identity tokens are quickly becoming a kind of standard piece of internet infrastructure. And basically it allows us to provide signing and encryption resources for these, what is essentially personally identifiable information. It provides a standard ontology for that information, as well as the ability to compose multiple tokens together. So you can imagine a case where an agent app can say, here are kind of the user submitted identity claims, as well as a, let's say, a more trusted claim that could come from a covered business's identity provider service. The DRP is basically just a state machine, right? We're trying to represent the life cycle of a data rights request without actually talking about what is happening behind the scenes, right? We're working with these implementing groups to kind of handle the back of house stuff and do it in such a way that it can plug into existing data rights pipelines or existing automation schemes. Finally, because of the lack of current industry adoption, let's say, in technologies like JSON web tokens and in the underlying trust mechanisms that surround them, the data rights protocol also provides an additional information channel so that a user could be notified basically that they need to go through a web verification flow. And that's encoded in this protocol such that such that it actually works and it's not being delivered out of band by email or text message or what have you. It's baked right into the protocol. And on that note, those are kind of the basic components. Ultimately, it's a very simple system. And in the weeks and months ahead, we'll be working to finalize the shape of those components and working with the implementer groups to actually get data flowing through the system. And to talk a little bit more about that I'll throw back to Jenny.
Awesome, thanks, Ryan. And yeah, it's a really good technical introduction, and we're excited to get technical feedback from you all and to collaborate on our GitHub in the wake of this call as well. Again, all of the technical features of the data rights requests are about how do we make it so that these four sides of the marketplace are able to talk to each other in a more efficient, more cost-effective, more standard way. And so because of that, we needed to have everyone from these, representatives of each of these four sides of the marketplace had to be around the table in drafting this. And so that's how we came up with this concept of the implementers. And on the next slide, you'll see that we've been really lucky to get to partner with some incredible companies who represent different sides of the exchange of data rights requests. They've come around the table to draft the protocol with us. And they've agreed that they intend to implement the protocol. They've attended our implementers meetings, and they've been offering feedback along the way too. So on the next slide, you'll see a bit about what our collaboration has looked like so far. This is really new work. We just started it this summer, and we've been kind of reaching out to different organizations that we were hoping we'd be able to have around the table to draft the protocol. We've hosted a series of meetings with the implementers where we've offered a draft protocol and sought feedback, done some refinements, and then done the same again. And now we're at version 0.4 and we're hosting this event. Next, what you'll see is that we have a lot of work to do before we're at V1 of the protocol. So in the weeks and months ahead, we're going to be hammering down a governance structure for our group. so that we have a consistent agreement of how we'll work together in an ongoing way. And we're also going to be developing test criteria and code so that we can do some conformance and interoperability testing among us before implementing the protocol and launching V1 as a group. And we're targeting mid next year for that. So on the next slide, it is time for you to finally hear from Daza Greenwood. Daza has been our incredible, fearless leader of the Data Rights Protocol Initiative. Daza is at MIT Media Lab, and he's the executive director of law.mit.edu. And he also is a member of our R&D team at Consumer Reports, and he's been leading the protocol. So I'll hand off to Daza, who will introduce the implementing companies so that you can hear their perspectives.
Well, thank you so much for that generous introduction, Jenny. And it has been such a pleasure working on this protocol. It really is the realization of so many years of aspiration in this area for all of us. So my role is primarily to introduce you actually to the implementing companies. And again, I just want to emphasize that they fall into three categories. One of the categories you could call it covered businesses that have to comply with the law, such as Spokeo. The other category are what we call privacy infrastructure providers, and these are also known as data subject rights providers, DSR providers, and these are the companies who operate on behalf of covered businesses to make sure that these requests are processed in a privacy enhancing manner. And then finally, we have authorized agents. Unauthorized agents are companies that operate on behalf of consumers to assist them in exercising their rights in a simple and scalable way. So with that, I want to just ask, because we have a sort of a time container here, if each of you from the companies could please keep your remarks to about 2 minutes, I'd be very grateful. We don't want to cut you off. Can we go to the next slide? And so first up, we'd love to hear from John Grunberg of DataGrail. I should also mention the order of the companies is sequenced alphabetically, and they're all equally critical. But with that, John, please introduce yourself and share some remarks.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to see so many folks on the roundtable today. Looks like we're almost at 75, which is awesome. It's really important for us to have a lot of participation in order to drive adoption of this new standard. So my name's John Grunberg. I lead product and design here at DataGrail, and we are a data privacy startup. We can go to the next slide. We help enable organizations to build transformative privacy programs through automation and integration. What we found is that for many organizations, they want to help deliver privacy and privacy rights to individuals, but it's very difficult to do because of the sprawl of technology that every organization uses today. So we believe fundamentally that privacy is a human right, and we exist to help those businesses get over the hurdles of delivering that human right to individuals. That was why I was really excited when Daza reached out about the Data Rights Protocol. Data Rights Protocol can help serve as the foundation for increasing the power of individuals to exercise their data rights across any business. And what that means is that through everything that Ryan laid out, walking through the different protocol layers that we've defined, we're able to create a scalable system for individuals to interact with businesses that may own their information. As we're thinking about the key challenges that we need to overcome in defining this protocol, 4 things came to mind to me. The first is discovery. We need a mechanism for individuals to discover who may have their data. The authorized agent is the starting point for that, but there are many things that we'll be able to do in the future with the protocol to help enhance discovery. The second element is verification. We need to ensure that the individual trying to access or interact with data is the proper individual to access that data. That's why we have a breakout group and a session later today on identity verification. Third challenge we need to overcome is delivery. How do we get that data back to an individual once they've been verified? And finally, the biggest hurdle is adoption. We need to have authorized agents and privacy infrastructure providers and covered businesses and other entities participate in this protocol to ensure that enough businesses adopt the protocol for it to be successful. With that, thanks for having me join, and I'll hand it off to the next person.
Thank you so much. And next up, we have Killian Kieran of Ethica. Killian, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Daza, and thank you everybody to the team at MIT and Consumer Reports for both hosting this and the working groups that we've all participated in. They've been fantastic, so thank you. So I'm Killian Kieran. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Ethica. Similar to many of the implementers you're going to speak to today, we're a data privacy technology company, a startup based in New York. Our approach is slightly different. We focus on open source developer tools for privacy. And so obviously we come to this from a point of view of being concerned about how we ensure consistent orchestration of data rights requests on customer infrastructure or businesses, covered businesses, as it were. So we were extremely excited about this because much as John outlined, the challenges that exist in data rights, sort of globally, jurisdictionally abstract, right? GDPR, CCPA, LGPD, et cetera, is the consistency of data across systems and the interoperability of the APIs with which you might make those requests or respond in terms of the data packet that's returned. The resulting pain is that a covered business might not know what data they need to return, how to categorize it, or indeed how to ingest those requests from an agent or the consumer, the subject. So that lack of consistency creates the sort of VHS versus Betamax issues that we saw in the 80s, right? Like we need a consistent standard that we all adhere to, that we're all willing to apply. And I think this project, the DRP, the Data Rights Protocol, is a first opportunity to do that. I think the challenges are the areas that I'm most interested in is continuing to focus on and refine are things like the handshake that is the sort of JWT between the consumer and the agent to ensure that that is safe and consistent and doesn't compromise the consumer. And also the binding of additional data identifiers to that profile. So in particular, right now, you'll see in the draft that we have, we're at a point where it's about retrieving data from sort of owned infrastructure. I think one of the things that I'm concerned about is a lot of businesses that are less sophisticated when they think of data sales, think of cookies and sort of what might look like low risk event and analytics behavior data that runs in the front of their site. All of those things need to be consolidated. So we have more work to do, but this is a first fantastic draft and I'm really excited to be participating in this. I'm going to hand it over to the next team.
Thank you so much. And next up we have Gal Golan of Mine. Gal, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Daza, and welcome everyone. So hi, my name is Gal. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Mine. We are as well a startup involving in privacy. We are a smart data assistant that connects consumers and companies around privacy rights. As everyone here in the group, we are advocates of new privacy regulations and fans of companies that make them accessible, but we also realize that for the average consumer, that's simply not enough. And to benefit from this new era of privacy, we must help consumers understand why and how they should exercise their privacy rights. And that's exactly where we fit in. Mine starts by discovering the companies that have your personal information and help you take action. And to date, we've facilitated over 6 million data privacy requests that reached 300,000 companies worldwide and gained unprecedented insights into these processes and applied them by developing a platform that's extremely easy to use and helps companies automate their privacy ops. The data rights protocol for us is a major step towards making privacy rights accessible to everyone, which was the reason these regulations were invented in the first place. We welcome all the other partners that are part of this amazing initiative, and we can't wait to start implementing it.
Here. Thank you so much, Gal. And next up, we have Ryan Edge of OneTrust. Ryan, you're up.
Great. Thanks, Daza. And hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you all today. My name is Ryan Edge, and I lead our privacy offering at OneTrust. OneTrust, like some of the other folks you've heard from so far, is a privacy technology provider that helps organizations comply with privacy regulations and respect the rights of individuals, but also really start to bridge the gap between privacy and many other parts of an organization like security, ethics and compliance, and ESG to really make organizations be more trusted. And so we, of course, believe that privacy is a critical, if not the most critical piece of this puzzle, and has really been the catalyst to start to drive this goal of trust that organizations are starting to pursue today. And so similar to the other folks who've spoken so far, in addition to believing that, privacy is a right of those individuals and the control over their data needs to be respected by organizations. We also believe that on the other side of the coin, by doing this, organizations are able to leverage this trusted relationship as a competitive advantage. And so, we have technology that helps organizations fulfill these privacy rights or DSAR requests from individuals, and are super excited to be collaborating with the team here and contributing to the protocol, which is really going to help make this process more efficient for both sides of the equation. So being able to really fulfill those rights requests with less friction, both on the individual and on the organization, and making this process as simple as possible really just increases transparency, increases the choice that an individual has with an organization, and helps build that trusted relationship between both sides, which is a win-win for everyone involved. So really excited to be contributing going forward as part of the protocol.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Ryan. And next up, we have Harrison Tang of Spokeo. Harrison, you've got the floor.
Thanks, Taza. Hi, I'm Harrison Tang. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Spokeo, and also known as the CEO Dad. So CEO of Spokeo, Dad of 3 sons. Spokeo is a people search engine and identity aggregator that aggregates over 12 billion records into 600 million profiles to help about 15 million users a month to search, connect, and know who they're dealing with. Actually, next slide, please. We believe that the future of identity will be self-sovereign, which is this idea of you control your own identity, personalized, that access to identity information is personalized based on the context of the data sharing, decentralized, the identity infrastructure is not controlled by any single entity, federated, identity can be easily federated despite having a decentralized infrastructure, easily federated, aggregated, and processed and available to use for good. Secure and intelligent. Your identity could make basic decisions and interactions on your behalf. This future can only exist on top of transparency and control, and we believe that data rights protocol is a step toward this future. So we're very excited to be a participant in drafting the data rights protocol. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harrison. And now next up we have, I believe you usually go by Darius B. of Surfshark. Darius?
Yeah, that's correct. So I'm Darius Belayos, or Darius, and I'm a CBDO at Surfshark. Surfshark is a cybersecurity company where we aim to humanize digital security and privacy protection solutions. And our goal is to make them appealing and accessible to the broader public. And when we started researching what's happening with the practical application of the Keystone privacy laws, GDPR and CCPA, we realized that the situation is, well, quite terrible for everyone involved. From the user perspective, it's close to impossible to exercise your rights to privacy at a scale. And on the flip side, it can be quite an awful experience for the businesses as well right now, because complying with the requests can be expensive and burdensome. We see the data rights protocol as sort of a first step in bridging the gap between what the privacy laws strive to accomplish and the situation that we have right now, at least from the user's perspective. And at Surfshark, we see a future where managing what kind of companies have what kind of data and doing that at scale could be as easy as clicking a few buttons. And this is what we're working towards. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now next, we've got Benjamin Brook of Transcend. Benjamin?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Brook. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Transcend. So first of all, thank you to the team at Consumer Reports for organizing this today and coordinating this initiative. We're thrilled to be a part of it. So a little bit about us. Transcend is the privacy platform that makes it easy to encode privacy across your tech stack. And we built data privacy infrastructure to solve 2 major challenges: privacy requests and consent. So Transcend Privacy Requests automatically orchestrates all user information across companies' databases, SaaS tools, and applications. And it not only removes human failure points and strengthens security, but it also empowers consumers with actionable, clear, and self-serve data rights. And Transcend Consent peels away all the technical complexity and makes user consent all about open and honest communication. It goes beyond cookies and ensures that every data flow is regulated based on user consent or browser signals such as gPC. And it also saves time and resources on configuration and all of this without sacrificing any site performance or user experience. And so for us, the decision to be involved in this initiative was an easy one. Our mission at Transcend is to put users everywhere in control of their data. So anything that we can collectively do to support this and give internet users the strongest possible agency over their online privacy should always be our North Star. And one area that's of particular interest for me is ensuring that this protocol does not sacrifice security and the protection of user data in the pursuit of interoperability. So I'm really excited to be contributing on this point in particular. And when we were in the early stages of building Transcend, we actually made the decision to re-architect the platform from the ground up to be secure by design and with data minimization at its core. And I believe the same principles can apply here. So it would be deeply ironic if we as a privacy provider were trusted with handling all of the sensitive data. And we think it's the right baseline to be operating from. So to sum all of this up, I'm super excited to be representing Team Transcend in this work and to be a part of what we're setting out to do here. So coming together to take today's and tomorrow's privacy laws and turning them into real control and agency for internet users everywhere. So thank you very much. With that, I'll hand it back over.
Thanks so much, Ben. And last but not least, we've got Chris Gettner of Wirewheel. Chris, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be involved in this project. Being the W, we're usually at the end of all these alphabetical lists, so that's always the one I get to see everybody else's presentations. It's the same kind of story. We believe privacy is a fundamental human right, and when we founded Wirewheel, one of the key points that we always believed in is that the key to privacy being truly enabled throughout the enterprise was to reduce the friction for both the consumer and the company in implementing their privacy rights and making privacy truly privacy by design part of their everyday life, so that privacy wouldn't be a standalone type of process or activity, but privacy is an intimate part of everything that you do as part of your business, and it becomes innate. So in making things frictionless, we really do focus on how to enable privacy both upstream into the enterprise, so that privacy activities and privacy decisions become integrated part of day-to-day in a company's using our software, become part of the company's day-to-day processes and their DevOps platform, their business decisions, their individual consent and preference management systems, as well as down to the consumer. So we're very excited about being involved in the data rights platform discussion, and think that it's the beginning of the conversation of how do we enable the consumer to truly be the agent in control of their own data.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. And so there you have it. That's our team of implementers who, hand in hand with Consumer Reports Digital Lab, are co-drafting this protocol and who are about to embark with us on a regime of testing it, implementing it, and ultimately we intend to deploy it. Next up, we've got our gracious host at MIT, and who's also been a terrific supporter of this entire initiative. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce Professor Sandy Pentland. Sandy, you've got the stage.
Okay, great. Well, I'll do this really quickly. What I'm particularly interested in is people might say, why is it going this way? Why this type of approach, including people like Consumer Union and this particular notion of data right protocols. And I think that the way I think of it is at 100,000 feet is that if you realize that data is now really a primary means of production, it's like money, it's like labor, it's like land. It's not this thing on the side anymore. And there are heads of countries that have come out saying this now. Then the main problem is that this new resource, this means of production, is in too few hands. And so we need institutions that help citizens share the benefit and to protect rights. And it's worth looking back in time to sort of see how we've done this with other major resources or means of production. So with land, we had development of a public commons. And this is, of course, many centuries old now, but more modern sort of views on this are only a couple centuries old. And key to that was the notion of ownership rights. Not necessarily ownership per se, but the notion of who has the right to do what on what land. Money, same thing. Particularly, I think the evolution was important in the sort of 1870s when it was mostly Eastern banks, and you got agricultural co-ops founding their agricultural banks as a way to push back against the Eastern banks. And that tension between the cooperatives, the community-oriented entities, forged the modern banking system. And in labor, of course, we have labor unions. Again, sort of around the beginning of the 20th century, we had a few big companies that controlled things and were not fair in how they treated workers. And workers banded together into labor unions, which pushed back, and eventually there was a truce declared as legislation was implied. Now, today, data is this new means of production, and we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing a few companies that have outsized influence on this resource, citizens being treated unfairly. And so what we need is some sort of cooperative efforts to be able to enable citizens as collectives to be able to push back, because it's too complicated for individuals, and individual data rights don't have a great deal of value in isolation. And so Consumer Union is a great partner for this because it has the representing their members attitude, the fiduciary responsibility. It has the history of doing this and many other things. And together with Daza and the people in my group that help with some of the technical things, I think we have the ability to really put in place a really practical way for groups of people to begin to take advantage of their data and begin to do things. So I put all this in the context of all of the previous struggles over means of production. And that's why I think somebody like Consumer Union is so important, Consumer Reports, and why the Data Rights Protocol is really the right thing to do to make this happen at the individual level. And hope that makes sense to you all. Thank you for coming. I'm really excited about this.
Thank you so much, Sandy, for the just tremendous support and thought leadership that you've offered to help us all get to this point. And so with that, I believe, yes, we are now at that special time. So you know a protocol is going to be good when all the people are involved are so efficient that we can give you 20 minutes of your day back. And that's us. And so may I ask Ben or Ginny in particular, are there any other closing comments or corrections that we want to make before we wrap up?
No, I concur in that we should give people their time back as a sign of goodwill, but just want to reiterate everything you've heard. I mean, we're very early in this process. We want to build a team and a group of institutions that can co-own this, and that means putting together a governance approach in the coming months. But we have really high hopes for what this can become, and we hope that this can provide value for you in whatever your line of business might be. So thanks again, and looking forward to conversations later today, in the weeks and months ahead, and we'll be seeing you around.
Hear, hear. And so just to speak to what you're seeing on the screen right now, we really want to leave you with one big thought. So now that you've learned more about what this data rights protocol is and a little more about the process and the people involved in putting it together and who aim to be among the initial entities that are deploying it, the reason why we're doing this sort of light unveiling today is really because now that we're at 0.4, we think it's stable enough to ask for your input. So to provide feedback on the draft protocol, we want to encourage you to share your questions or your comments, and maybe most especially your ideas through the means that are on the screen right here. And I'm also going to chat at you for your ease of clickability. The Google form, there we are, where we can just make sure that we can track your input and have a good chance at addressing it and thinking about it and incorporating it. The most important thing to remember is we're aware that we still have more to do to complete our security model, the authentication and authorization flows and so forth. And if you go into our GitHub repo, you'll see that we've tagged that, and it's on the roadmap. It's not version 1.0 yet, but we'd love your input on any parts of the protocol and related matters. So with that, please do provide your input and stick with us and engage in the future. And we want to thank you very much for your time today. That's going to wrap up our data rights protocol roundtable, and we'll look forward to connecting with you more on this in the future as it evolves.